is back again. We're doing the Chris Jericho Big Show TLC or ladder.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
It might just be a ladder match.
I see Amir's in the chat too. I like the
thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it as always.
That's one of my favorite ones of the night. Yeah, international title stays where it is.
Listening to the
FTW Championship though, and this was
review
a pretty solid segment. Hook and Chris Jericho had their Falls Count Anywhere matches, which of course I enjoy.
I'm just kind of sitting here.
Solid no DQ action, nothing too crazy to talk about. No specific spots that made me go like, okay, crap, I got to add that down to the best or for that matter worst of the end of the year type spots or botches or anything. They just had a solid enough no DQ match, and I think the biggest standout thing actually was probably Hook kicking out of 2 Judas effects. So that's kind of like his big moment in here. And then they try to do the whole thing with the "I'm sorry, I love you" type, Shawn Michaels Ric Flair thing, where Jericho's got Floyd, the baseball bat, and he says, "Don't make me do this," and Hook just flips him off, and he, nails him in the head. So it's they're kind of going with a story of like Jericho still wanting to be a teacher for Hook and not willing to let that go quite yet. They even had the learning tree on the lower third for him today. So I dig this, and I know that the pushback on this is, well, like, do you really want to see Jericho hold this championship and really do that story? I get that point of view, because I haven't been loving a lot of Jericho's storylines going forward for a while, and it kind of makes me question whether or not this is going to be something that ultimately comes back around and loops around to, like, the full story is good. But I am more interested in Jericho beating Hook here, holding the FTW championship, and then losing it to Hook, than I am if Hook would have just beaten him. Because I got a feeling if Hook would have just beaten him, it wouldn't have been the end of the story. And then if it would have been the end of the story, it would have been just very rushed in. Felt like, okay, well, they did that for like 3 weeks and that's nothing. But if it would have continued after that point, then what is the story? I mean, not to make everything about Avengers and all, but if everybody would have just beaten Thanos in Infinity War and we have a part 2, then they just go, what do you want to do? Get some bagels?
Bagels.
10 points if you get that reference, by the way. Let me know. It's a cartoon from the 90s when somebody goes, I don't know, get some bagels? I think Rob probably would have gotten it off the top of his head. So, yeah, I like the Hulk and Jericho match for the most part. Not my favorite match of the night. And, it's not one of those things that I'm going to probably call back to at the end of the year awards in any fashion, but I thought for the most part it was fine. See, when it came to Timeless Tony Storm against Thunder Rosa, I've said plenty of times how checked out I am when it comes to Tony Storm and the same 5 people that she had been involved with for 2 years or whatever. And when you just wait a couple months and then you just go back to that, I have the same exact opinions. But I'll say, despite not being super into the Timeless Tony Storm character, not being as high on Thunder Rosa as I used to be, and not being interested in this feud, and all the other elements that makes me go, all right, I would skip this if it wasn't my job. They still had a fine enough match, so I got to give them credit where it's due. It wasn't a match that I am going to call back on and be like, you got to check it out if you missed it or anything. But I do think that they had a solid enough competitive match. So if you are not as, I don't know if I want to say cynical, if you're not as burned out for this feud and its surrounding elements as I am, you probably liked it even more. And that's cool too. So Storm Zero eventually gets the win after Thunder Rosa had kicked out of it prior. Deonna Purrazzo had gotten involved, so she's still somewhere in the mix there. I don't know exactly where they're going to go going forward from this. It doesn't seem like it's the right time to turn Mariah May. It doesn't seem like there's anybody from my perspective that's like a guarantee to be the next person in line, especially because it's like, well, if they wait for Jamie Hayter and do that in Wembley, is that going to be the game plan for switching the title? I don't know. Mercedes is going after the TBS title, so it's not going to be her. Or at least it shouldn't be. That wouldn't make any sense. So, I'm nervous that the game plan for Double or Nothing is Tony Storm versus Thunder Rosa versus
Pulled it
Deonna
down, got
Purrazzo,
knocked off right
and it's
as it was
just
pulled.
let's continue the
Nice.
same thing
I've seen that.
again
Thanks
and
for
just
watching, guys.
drag
Love you guys.
everything out.